In 2015, I retired from law enforcement. I had done a 25-year career as a deputy sheriff in Florida. My wife, Linda, at the time was not eligible to retire, so we couldn't just, do what people do and travel around and do nothing. And the pension was not enough to cover all of our expenses if she just quit. We just couldn't make that amount of money work. So we decided to go another route. We sold, donated, or just otherwise disposed of 99.9% of our belongings in the US, packed what was left into 4 suitcases, all weighing less than 50 pounds, because this guy does not pay for overweight bags. We boarded a plane in Orlando, flew to Cancun to live in a new country on 1/3 of the income that we were making in the US. It was quite a leap of faith. Our friends and family members called us crazy, of course. I mean, sounds crazy, right? But it worked out great. We lived a debt-free lifestyle for years in Mexico and even had enough extra money to travel, hang out on beaches, and just basically live every single day to the fullest. Fast forward just a little bit and we're back living in the US. We have debt again. I'm working again, and I have to do that because that 1/3 of the income is not enough in the States. Things have gotten super expensive since 2015, and inflation's off the chain, and you gotta have health insurance here and things, so here we are. So what happened? I mean, people ask me that all the time. What happened, Paul? Why are you back? Short answer is, well, life happened. There was a point when we were living in Mexico that we realized Linda's mother needed a little bit more assistance than we could provide living abroad. Trips back to Florida weren't enough. Doing banking online for her wasn't enough. Now, in a perfect world, we would have brought her to Mexico because it would have been very inexpensive for us to have somebody, even stay at the house every now and then or things like that. I mean, life is just a lot more affordable south of the border. But she wasn't having any of that. So we made the decision to move back. And in order to make that work financially, we did what we did when we moved to Mexico. We liquidated everything. By this point in Mexico, we own a condo, and we were living debt-free because we got a great price on that. We owned a vehicle. I mean, we had set up a whole new life in a new country. We had permanent residency status, and we basically sold everything. Packed what was left into, I think it was 6 suitcases this time, stretching it out a little bit, and came back to the States to start over again. My wife Linda is a very skilled negotiator, and when we first moved to Mexico, she negotiated with some Airbnb owners to try to find the best rate for a long-term lease, and that's what we did there. She did the same thing when we came back to the United States. So we found ourselves living in an Airbnb, which was nice because you got sheets and silverware and plates and things because we didn't own anything except for our clothes. That's it. That's all we had. We bought a car, and then we realized we didn't always need to be in the same place at the same time, so we bought another car, still using the money we had in Mexico. One thing we noticed right away is that things in the US had gotten a lot more expensive than they were when we left in 2015. We returned to a United States that is suffering from high inflation and high prices, and that 1/3 income thing isn't working here. And the biggest thing is not having health insurance in the US. I had it through retirement, but my wife does not. It was one of the reasons we moved to Mexico, was to find affordable healthcare, quality healthcare, and we did. I was very, very impressed with the private healthcare system in Mexico. I don't even want to go down that rabbit hole, but it's outstanding. Really like it there. Anyway, we're back in the States. We have more expenses, and we need health insurance for Linda. What are you going to do? You got to work, right? Fortunately, several of my former colleagues reached out to me and offered me jobs. After not having seen me in years, or maybe just kind of following us on Facebook and watching us hang around beaches in Mexico for years, offered me jobs. I'm very, very, very grateful. I accepted one of those jobs and found myself back, working, which I got to tell you was a little odd at first, a little weird working for somebody again, but they made it great place to work, no complaints. So, still don't have any debt at this point, but we're just living in an Airbnb. Mom's with us a lot of the time. She does really well with us. Nice, happy family. Definitely need more room though. And I hate throwing money away at leases. I just think it's the biggest waste of money. So even though the interest rates for homes absolutely suck in the US, we ended up buying a house in Florida, just so we'd have a place. And that meant we're in debt again. Yes, debt. It sucks, but it's just part of America, I think. That's what somebody told me when I mentioned I had not had any debt in over 8 years. They said, that's odd, Paul. It's just part of being American, isn't it? I thought about it. I'm like, yeah, I guess it is. So there's a little side plot running in our lives with this. Back in 2021, when Linda and I were discussing the strong possibility of having to return to the US, I immediately started thinking about how to fund this life in the States. How am I going to make that work financially? And that's before I had those job offers. So I was like, oof, I don't know if I can make that work. So I decided to try my hand at being a YouTuber because, you know, a guy in his 50s, you know, being a social influencer and content creator, I mean, what else are you going to do? It seems like, you know, it's going to work out great, right? Some of my friends thought that was crazier than selling everything and moving to Mexico. Well, I've been fortunate in a lot of ways in my life. I have a wonderful wife and family. I've had a great career in law enforcement. But I've also been fortunate when it comes to YouTube. And I'm not sure why. My son, he's baffled by the whole thing. Within 3 years, I had 2 channels doing relatively well. Both have had millions of views and both have over 100,000 subscribers. During that time, I've learned a lot about the business aspect of content creation, and I've turned that into multiple revenue streams. I've been juggling both working full-time and making content, you know, in my own business, and it's been wearing me out. I'm working like 7 days a week, 10 or 12 hours a day. I mean, making money, but it's just wearing me out. So I am leaving my regular paying job, you know, and my last day is actually this week on Friday. And I'm just going to dedicate myself to being a full-time content creator and hope, we knock on some wood, that works out. Life is all about rolling with changes and being willing to reinvent yourself over and over again. Who knows what I've got coming down the line, right? Anyway, that's my story. Thanks for watching. And that's all I got.